Hello, my name is Chrissy Larry, and this is the Craft to Be Kind Podbean. I am a radio presenter of the Craft to Be Kind show, but at the moment, with COVID, I'm doing it from home. So I've created a Podbean, which I'm really excited about, a podcast, and obviously it's called the Craft to Be Kind show, or is it just called Craft to Be Kind? I think it's just Craft to Be Kind. And my first guest is Steph, and he's got a lovely Italian name, so I'm going to ask him to introduce himself and tell us about your business, please, Steph.
Hello. Firstly, thank you for having me as your first guest on the Podbean podcast, whatever we decide to call it.
Call it Pod.
Yeah, exactly. So my name, we were just having a little bit of a discussion before we launched the show. My name is never the easiest for anyone to pronounce, so I offered just to say it. So it's Stefano Capacchione. But the business name is a lot easier to pronounce, and that's Puck Creations. Sorry, you asked me to introduce the business as well, I believe.
All of it, yeah. A whole introduction, please.
Okay. So Puck Creations, what we do is we create written content to make audiences think, feel, and take action. Now that sounds like a tagline, and that's because it is, but it's also true. So the idea behind what we do is we work with businesses to help define their brands, so that people understand the core of who they are, what they mean to them as a potential customer, and why they should be buying from them. And it's bigger than just the products and the benefits, although obviously all of that's included. And then the second kind of part of the business that we work on is we then create the content, written content for them. So we will write things like websites, we will write blogs, we will write advertisements for the radio or for video, etc. And all of that comes under the umbrella of making an audience think, feel, and take action. And it's all done using the defined brand as a guide. So whether we're helping the client to define that brand, or they already have a very well defined brand and we're just doing the writing for them, that's kind of the level of involvement that we take.
That's a bit. Would you class that as copywriting?
Yes, the secondary part of the business definitely is copywriting. Yes, it depends. You'll have lots of people who will call the advertising part of the writing that we do copy, and a lot of people who will say that the kind of the blogs and the newsletters, etc., is content writing. There's whole arguments that go on about that, but for me, to be honest, I think they're all just writing. They all amount to the same thing.
People like to debate things, don't they? We had a copywriter who did our artisan packages and all our spiel for that, which was really cool, because I think this is crafters, obviously, as you know, and creative people. We're really good at usually the making, not the other bits. So within Artisan, we really support, we had a chat about this earlier, we really support about storytelling, because it's how you get your people to connect with you and how you get your stories out there. And it's really hard on a noisy social media space, especially now, because loads of people are on it, even more so, aren't they?
Yeah, the competition for space is probably bigger than ever, and I think that's one of the things actually that we often talk about with our clients, is the idea that people are constantly trying to copy each other, and to try and fit in, and they say, oh, I really love what the competition is doing, and they're doing it so much better than me, so I want to be the competition. Yeah. It's okay to look at the competition and to see what they're doing. Of course it is. But if you want to be the competition, you might as well give up now.
Because there's only one of you, isn't there?
Exactly. But yeah, I think I actually wrote a blog that's on our website recently about how all of the Christmas ads that obviously came up before Christmas, and how many of them had basically just copied John Lewis and done exactly the same style of ad as the first kind of John Lewis ones that came out.
That
And
so
the John Lewis ads
incredibly sad.
sorry, go on.
That was so incredibly sad, though. The John Lewis
Yeah,
was so sad. I was like, oh my word. And so the feedback
too
was from that
much.
was, it's too much after the year we've had. So why would they want to copy it?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it kind of works for John Lewis, although I think it worked better in previous years because again they've repeated themselves a bit too much. But when you copy them, all you're really doing is advertising John Lewis, because the first thing that people think of is, hang on a minute, isn't that the John Lewis ad? And so you need to be unique. And last year, I personally thought that Lidl did that really well. Lidl did a bit of a Mickey take out of all of the other adverts, and even at one point mentioned Kevin the Carrot, who actually belongs to the Audi adverts, just to have a little bit of a joke at other people's expense. But it really suited
Liked it.
Lidl's brand personality, and it made them stand out. So that's when you're talking about you know using storytelling and using different ways of getting yourself across, because of how saturated social media is. That's something that we really emphasize with our clients as well. Is you want to find what it is about you that makes you different. Don't make it up. Don't be different because you want just for the sake of being different. Work out who you are, who you genuinely are, and then you're able to you're automatically different once you dig in that deep, because nobody else is you. And then you can use that to.
I think some people struggle with that though, Steph. Do you? Actually, who you are and what you want to do and what you want to offer. It takes a lot of work, especially if you're. A lot of our crafters haven't always been crafters, so they've, like me, I had an illness where I had to give up my nursing, or they've had a full-time job and then they have a baby, so they're staying at home, or they're retired. So it's really difficult to start with, to believe you're a business person. It is. It's like, wow. And then to use that to grow. So it's a bit of a weird one, but I was going to ask you about your background before we go into any further. So what did you do before? That brings it nicely. Where you based?
Yes, yeah. So it's quite wide and varied. So actually, before I started up Puck Creations, my background was, in a sense, quite nice, because it was away from work altogether, and I was traveling. So I spent quite a lot of time traveling around, 14 months traveling around Central and South America, and actually spent a little bit of time traveling around Europe too. But the reason that's relevant is because during that time, I was deciding to move into starting up Puck Creations and to run Puck Creations as a business. And the reason was, before I went traveling, I was working for Global Radio. Do you know Global at all?
Yeah, I've heard of Global.
I was thinking, as someone working for Solihull, you might. So Global Radio, for those who don't know, they're the biggest commercial radio brand in the UK, and they own Heart Radio, Capital,
I love
Classic
Heart.
FM. Yeah, same. And I'm especially a big fan of Classic FM, and I like listening to LBC to get angry as well. So they own a lot of these big stations, and I was working for them as partly in sales and the marketing side, but then I was also able to work with them from a point of view. I was allowed to start writing some ads for some of our clients. They gave me permission to start writing some ads and to start getting an idea of how to write some radio scripts. And I've loved writing forever, since I was, I don't know, 5-6 years old. I started reading, then I started wanting to write my own stories. But I didn't really realize that unless you were an author, that you could actually make any money from it. So I never really went down that route as a career. And so before before going and working for Global, I'd worked in different sales roles, mainly working in IT sales for some, big IT sales companies, and it was all fun. And, I earned decent money doing sales, and so I definitely would never complain about it. But it never quite felt right. It never quite felt like I was in the place I wanted to be doing the thing that I wanted to do. And then when I realized that I could actually write for a living, and there was a way to make money from writing, that kind of triggered something in me, which made me think, actually, I want to do this permanently. And then when I went traveling and went away, I had time to then really figure out how to do that and how to make that possible and how to actually make that into a business. And that's where
That
Puck
sounds
Creations
awesome,
began.
travelling and sorting out what you want to do. That sounds really cool.
Thank you. It's if I could spend my life just traveling, to be honest, I probably would. Traveling and writing. Maybe I will be able to do that at some point. But
I used to travel a lot, a real lot, and then with my one child, and then there's a big gap, and then
right.
last year I got a camper van. I thought, right, this is it. They're old enough, we can come together. And then what happened?
I know. Yes. What an interruption. How rude.
Very rude. Very rude. But it's not my job.
Going?
I want to go to Switzerland to start with, so I want to go around Europe.
Yes,
but we did manage to take it down to Weymouth in August.
It's almost the same.
Oh, well, it's a start.
Yeah, exactly. I've never actually been to Weymouth, so there you go. Is it a nice place?
Beautiful. There's something called Durdle. I can't ever say it right. Durdle Door, which is a beach and these beautiful rocks. Then we went to somewhere called the Blue Pool, which I love stuff like that. It's just beautiful. And it was just, the kids just stayed in the awning and I was in the van with the dogs. It was awesome.
Brilliant. Awesome. They're all barking away and you're just there taking in the beauty.
Yeah. Lovely. It's really, really nice. So I do get itchy feet, and it's time. I used to live in New Zealand. I emigrated there in my 20s.
Oh, wow. Where did you live? Sorry, this is going to be. I'm not sure how much fun this is going to be for everyone else, but I don't care. Where did you live?
It's a podcast. They can listen to it. It's all about us.
Exactly. That's what business is about, I'm sure, as well. I might have got that wrong.
I lived in a place called Wongaparoa, which is the North Island, and then I moved down to Auckland. I worked with the Special Education Service because that's my background, caring special needs, and now I've got 2 boys with special needs as well, which is like I've guided into that. It's funny how your life journey is. I don't know, it's weird. I am a bit woo-woo, and it just feels like I'm pushed into where I should be. Yeah. So I want to hear a lot more about you, but if I was on the radio right now, I'd be putting in a few songs. And I was saying to you before, is there any? I think because we can't play any music, or perhaps we can on podcasts. I don't know. It's probably copyrighted. The copyright.
Yeah, I imagine there's some kind of licensing law, but honestly, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to do some kind of jingle or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I looked on the Podbean, and it's really cool. You can actually use your phone and go live and just talk into it. So I'm going to be using that quite a lot.
Oh, brilliant. I didn't know that was a possibility. Yeah.
No, I know. I was like, oh, I like that. So let's talk about books. I think books or podcasts or anything that you've been inspired by or has helped you grow your business as well.
Okay. Interestingly, I think fiction books and actually children's books are probably some of the most inspiring books for me, because they were how it all started. So as I said earlier, I've loved reading and writing since I was a child, and that has a lot to do with Roald Dahl and Quentin Blake's illustrations as well off the back of it. And so things like the BFG and Matilda and then also going on to a different author, but things like The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, those kind of books where everything is about creating characters and creating completely new worlds. And, as I got a bit older, Harry Potter came along, and Lord of the Rings was around when I was younger, but I wasn't old enough to understand it. So I then got to read that as well. And then, that translated into watching them on screen. All of those worlds are actually what really inspires me when it comes to writing. And I think that's possibly what makes what I do slightly different to some other writers, because the way that I think about writing is less there's the important parts about writing is you need to get your message across. You need to make sure that people understand who you are, talking to your audience. There's all the business side, which I've learned from my marketing and sales days. But there's something which a lot of people, I think, miss, which is there's the creativity, there's the hook, there's the intrigue that you need to grab. And that's what those writers do. That's what Roald Dahl does. That's what Lewis Carroll does. That's how they grab you from the very beginning of the book, that you, back into, Dickens and people like that.
I show my
That's
age, Steph. Mine was Enid Blyton when I was younger.
Oh, Enid Blyton, classic.
I'm really old. My daughter's 33, so that gives you a clue how old I am.
I won't delve any further into
But
it other than to say that's also my age.
my children, my first two children, my brother was really into Terry Pratchett. I've read a few and I really liked his. Oh, I loved his.
Yes,
Really
the Discworld.
Discworld, absolutely Discworld, yeah.
Yeah. There were also, interestingly enough, there were games of Discworld on the old consoles that came out. I don't know if you've heard of them at all.
No, I haven't. I'm not into gaming, but my kids are.
These days, I'm not either. But when I was a kid, I used to love it. And I remember the Discworld games coming out, and I used to. It was kind of a puzzle game. You had to work out. You had to go along and work out different from different clues where to go next, etc. But it was a puzzle with a story intertwined.
Oh, my kids would like that. The games that they do, my son it's a story with it. I can't think what they are now. But it is a story, and it's a civilization and all this stuff that goes.
Oh yeah, civilization, brilliant. Yeah. Again, I think all of that's intertwined though, and that's the kind of thing that I think captures people, and it's another way of actually. I think people sometimes don't realize that stories are everywhere. Stories are in the games that you play. When people say, "Oh, I don't really like stories. I don't read any books," I'm like, "Yeah, but do you play computer games? Because if you do, there's a reason you're so absorbed by some of these computer games, and it's not just because you get to shoot people. Like you want to follow the narrative and see where it's going, and yeah."
And the same with influencers, wouldn't you think? Why people follow other people? It's because they're really good storytellers.
Definitely, yes, I would 100% agree with that. I think obviously there's the more shallow side of things. Some people just like to follow people because they look a particular way and that's what they like to see.
Yeah.
But I agree that there are lots of good-looking people out there, and not every single good-looking person is an influencer. No. There are some people who know how to. There's all the stories of woe of how I used to be. I used to be ugly and then I became beautiful. Those kind of stories, which I find a bit cliched and not the best in the world, but they're there, and they some people love them and do follow them. And then there's the stories of people who are going traveling, and people are following them around traveling to all of these different parts of the world because they're not able to travel themselves for one reason or another. So there's those stories that come along with influencers. So yeah, I agree. It is another.
And I think the ones I really like are almost the underdogs, even the actors and stuff, the ones that have had really difficult times. I think it's because I've had difficult times and I can resonate with it. I can't think of one now, but I used to follow Will Smith and I used to follow Goldcast a lot when I first started because I was in a bad place. And I used to be really inspired by them. So I think a lot of that is all good storytelling as well. Although it's fact and it's all fact, but it's delivered really well, isn't it?
It's the way it's told sometimes. What would you say it was that kind of made you stick with it and made you want to continue following the story? Was it kind of, actually, I'll just let you answer rather than be second guessing.
What do you mean with Goldcast?
Yeah, and with and you said with Will Smith as well. What was it that made you continue wanting to?
There's quite a few of them actually, and I don't know why. If I think about it, I think it's because. Let me think. When I was first started my business, I had quite a difficult year where my son was diagnosed and I was diagnosed and lost lots of stuff in my life. And I started I made a business. My business sort of found me because I made something for my son to help him sleep.
Okay.
And I was just looking at things to keep me going. That first year I didn't go out the house. I was pretty housebound. And I found the internet. And I found Gold Coast, and there was a Goldcast, and there was a few of them that I really liked. Why was it for Will Smith? I don't know, because I think I don't know. That's a really difficult question. I really liked the way he talked to people. I really liked the way he delivered. I really liked the tips he gives you. I really liked I don't know if you've seen it where he wrote himself a check. That was him, wasn't it? That was Will Smith.
I don't know.
Yeah, he
I
wrote
don't know.
himself a check, and I like that he's gone from quite difficult times to actually come and being famous. And not this is about famous for me, but it's about succeeding, I suppose. So it's almost like a role model in a kind of way. And I thought it was helping, and I still do think this, helping me to grow too.
Okay, brilliant.
You might
The reason I asked the question, the reason I was interested, and I think you've explained it perfectly well, and it's very hard to explain sometimes, which the fact that you found it hard to explain actually, I think, helps my point even more, because there's something about stories, and there's also something about the way that you speak to people as a brand, that very much falls into your audience's subconscious. It's not about them going, I really like you because, and then being able to list a whole load of reasons why they like a particular company, brand, or a particular person. Quite often, it's all quite subtle. But you mentioned that with Will Smith, it's how he talks to you, it's his tone of voice, it's the way that you can feel that connection, and there's an emotional connection because of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same with businesses too. And so with all of the crafty people in your group, that's something which when people are connecting with their products, quite often they're connecting with their products because they see something which they actually emotionally, they feel something before they ever think, I want to buy this. They feel something. And then when they see the rest of the brand and the website, and they see the words that are on the page, the pictures that are on there, any videos that are on there, and if they go, again, they're not consciously saying, oh, I really think that tone of voice is quite friendly, but it's a little bit authoritative, blah, blah, blah. They're not thinking about this logically,
No.
but there is something in them which says, I connect with this. And often that's to do with things like the tone of voice that's coming across. It's to do with the personality. It's to do with them understanding that the reason the business started in the first place is something that they also connect with and they feel right now at that moment in time, which again was something you mentioned with Will Smith and the journey that he went on from struggling to actually being able to be in a place where he's now very successful.
Yeah.
Those connections are the things that make us want to be associated and to buy from particular brands from a business point of view, and they're the things that make us want to listen to and constantly watch different celebrities, and they're the things that make us want to also, from a human point of view, they're the things that make us want to be friends with certain people.
Absolutely, because you find you attract certain people as well, don't you? I think
Exactly.
with your friends are all very similar. I just thought of another one I followed was Disney, because he had a really difficult time before he was knocked back a lot, and I got that a lot when I was first starting, that you can't do this, you're ill, you can't do this. And then I followed the story of KFC chicken as well, because he was another one who started really late in life. So that's the people that
I don't know much about that story. Is what
which one?
What happened with that story? How did it start?
KFC?
Yeah.
So KFC, I can't remember. I do have a memory disorder, but I can't remember what he did before. But I think he was about 55, and he was in his kitchen. I think he lost quite a lot of stuff. He had difficulties in his life, and he started making the sauce, or whatever it is. What is it? The KFC chicken.
The special sauce, the finger licking good sauce.
That's it. The stuff that goes around their chicken.
Yeah.
He made that in his kitchen, and everyone told him, "What are you doing? You're too old for that. You're not going to be able to sell that." And he went door to door, offering his services, and that's how he did it. I mean, people have their opinions of KFC and fast food, but what his work ethic and his plan and everything like that, his model was amazing, and it worked really well. So I think that's for me, because that's where I feel not now, but
no, but I get that, and again, I think that's amazing, because I never even knew that story, so it's incredible to find out. But again, you're able to tell that, and you're able to explain something because you heard a story. If you had just heard a fact, about KFC, you'd probably have forgotten it by now. But because you kind of heard the story, and you again, you don't know all of the facts about it, but you knew there was some kind of, he was struggling, he got to a certain age and he still wasn't being successful. People told him no, and then he was able to turn that around. That all comes because it was told to you, or you read it in such a way that there was a narrative. And those narratives are key to getting people to actually listen and to understand and to want to be one with what they're actually reading. Or whereas I mean, there are statistics about this which I can't, funnily enough, I can't remember, but there are statistics about how people remember things. And when you get told a fact, I'm going to make this up, it's something like 5% of people remember the fact, but when you get told a story, you're likely to remember, it's something like 80% of people remember a large chunk of the story. Again, I just made that up because, like, the precise numbers, because the actual numbers aren't what people are going to remember anyway. That what they're going to remember is the sense of the idea that stories are more powerful than statistics, and that's the key to having a good story in both, you know, life and in business.
And I think if it inspires and motivates you, you are going to want more from them, because it makes
Yes.
you feel good.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
No, but that makes a lot of sense. And I think something else you mentioned as well when you were talking about the KFC idea, and you said that lots of people have issues with fast food, and you know, there are also, you know, there'll be, you know, vegetarians and vegans who just don't like the idea of people eating meat at all, etc. Which again, completely fair enough. I understand everyone has their different points of view on things, but I think part of the key with that as well is understanding who it is you're speaking to and who your audience are and who it is that you want to sell to. So KFC probably don't go around wanting to upset loads of people, but they know that they're selling chicken, and they're selling chicken which is made quickly and isn't very healthy for you. So the chances are they're going to upset people who don't want to eat meat, and who also think that we should all be eating healthily every single second of the day.
Yeah.
But they make a calculated decision that that's not the audience they're going for as a business. The audience they're going for as a business are people who want convenient, in their mind, tasty food, which is also cheap. And so that's their audience. They know these people. They know who they're selling to. And I think that's really important when you're creating your brand and your business, and also writing stories for them too, is that you understand you don't have to write for everybody.
Absolutely. I'm doing a training course this week, and yesterday, funny enough, we talked about branding. We talked about McDonald's and their slogan, and Nike and all that sort of thing, and how it all is. So we're our brand as well, aren't we? So what we say and what we do and everything for crafters is so important, that you get out, or you go live and share your story if you can go live. But there's other ways. But I don't think there's anything better than lives, personally.
No, I mean, it very much depends on you and your business and who you are. And there's also a question sometimes of, you know, as crafters within the group, I think most crafters within your group are individuals promoting a personal brand. And so I think for that reason, getting your face out there and getting onto a live is very, very powerful. It can be slightly different if you're creating a different type of brand, if you're not going for the personal brand model and you're going for more of a business brand model. And so then you might be trying to do things in a slightly different way. But again, this is the key about defining your brand. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, the other thing that I encourage is to demonstrate. So on live, you know, do the resin on live. I didn't, because that you can story tell as well, so it doesn't have to be just talking, because not everyone's good at that, are they? Or feel comfortable with that, rather, not good at it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that's a great point. And again, goes a little bit back further to what we were talking about earlier, which is that it's not just that stories aren't just in books. It's also, or, you know, even in computer games, etc., or movies. Stories are in illustrations, they're in pictures. As you say, they're in the crafts that people are making. There is a story in every single item that all of the people in the group are making. There is a story within that. There is a reason they made it in the first place. And yeah.
And I hear we're going to all about you in a minute, about what you're doing, but we're just setting the scene. But I always say that a lot of people say, well, I haven't got a story. Everyone says you've got a really big story, and I'm like, yeah, but that story was 5 years ago. But I continue to storytell because you can storytell about anything. You can storytell about this bottle of water if you really wanted to.
You can. You definitely can. It's currently empty, so you could maybe storytell about the journey of the water. Where did it come from originally? Where did it start?
I can tell you that my daughter, who likes to take the labels off all the time, is 15 and she's a twin, and she had to fight for her life for 3 months. All that sort of thing. It can start from anything.
Exactly. I think you've demonstrated that really well, actually, though, because you're right. So yes, people say I don't have a story, and there's a couple of points. Is that you don't, when you're talking about your why and why do people buy from you and why do you exist as a company, etc., you don't have to have this massive complicated story that is the same as everyone else's, or is digging deep into how there are people who have generally had really, really hard times and have managed to come through them, and that's why you connect with some of those people, and you've had that yourself, etc. If you think, oh well, I haven't had those hard times, and I haven't had to go through all of that, that's okay. You don't have to have, but there is a reason that you started your business. There is some reason that you decided that you wanted to make X, Y, or Z. Now, if the reason was purely because you wanted to make money and you thought it was the easiest possible way to make money, then maybe you don't have much of a story. Fair enough. I think that's very unlikely for 99% of businesses. Most businesses start because they saw a problem and they wanted to fix it.
And they want to help.
They thought they could do it a better way. Sorry.
And they want to help people.
Exactly. And they want to help people. So there's your story straight away. What was the problem you saw and what did you want to fix? Why did you see a problem? What made you think it was a problem in the first place? And then what did you want to do about it? Now, that's a very, very basic story. But even away from business, even when you're just talking about life in general and people say, well, I can't tell any stories, even if they're not about themselves, they just think I can't tell any stories. As you say, a story can be as simple as a moment in time. It can be as simple as, okay, I thought about a moment where I tripped over a curb 5 years ago. That was just a memory that came into my head. And then you go, well, what happened just before that? Why wasn't I concentrating? What is it that made me trip over that curb? And you start to think through the process. So you go, okay, this is a moment that I remember really clearly. Now, to tell myself the story in my head, all I need to do is maybe go 5 minutes back and then think about what was the result after I tripped over the curb. Did I smack my head on the ground? Did I actually save myself by putting my hands down? That's a really, really simple story, but
people will connect.
Potentially, exactly. Some people will connect with it, and potentially it will lead to something deeper as well. Potentially, there are times where you think about those small moments, and then you go, "Hang on a minute, but why wasn't I concentrating that day?" And then you think, "Oh, it was because I'd completely forgotten about this, but I just found out that I'd lost my job."
Yeah.
And for some reason, the moment that I remember was tripping over a curb.
Yeah. Wouldn't that resonate with a lot of people at the minute with COVID?
Yeah.
You could then go into loads, couldn't you? I say to my people, if you like, that I think I've always been a storyteller. I'm a middle child, so I've got middle child syndrome, bit of attention seeking, and this isn't new for me, I don't think. Even though I was very, very, as a nurse, I was very shy. I didn't like handovers and doctors, pass and all that. I just did my stuff. I didn't like that. Didn't like meeting people elsewhere. But I am a little bit of an attention seeker, but not now. But as a child, that's where I came from. So I think, yeah, I'm pretty good at this.
So I'm gonna put you a little bit on the spot now.
Oh no.
Tell me one of your, or at least a summary of, depending on how long it is, one of your favorite stories.
Of mine or of someone else's?
It can be anything you like, yours or somebody else's.
Oh gosh. Okay, so
I really am putting you on the spot. Sorry.
You are, but I'm going to tell you one, and I'll tell you one that I remember because she's really good at it. And even though I'm not looking at the comments right now, when we finish this live, I will be. And I know there's a lady on here. There's two ladies on here that I remember their stories really well. One is a lady who is a crafter, and she had a really bad motorbike accident, and she shouldn't have walked. She was told she's not going to walk again, and she did, and she's bought a business, and she's incredible. And the other lady is called Granny Maud. She's Rainbow Poochie,
So
Yeah, you know Granny Maud. Granny Maud come through Artisan, but we had jewels and everything in. I love the story about how her dad met his was over in Iceland and was looked after. He was in the war, and then they connected and stayed friends, and then they had a granddaughter, not Sue's, but his dad's friend granddaughter. Let me get this right. Ended up having AHC, and that's all she does. Everything she does is for raising money for charity for AHC. That's an amazing story, isn't it?
that is an amazing story, yeah. What I love is that again, the reason I asked you the question about your favorite story is because again it proves the connection that you now have, and I could feel the warmth as you told that story. I could feel how much you genuinely cared, and you wanted to express the story in the best way possible. You didn't want to, you didn't want to tell it slightly wrong,
Yeah, I
etc. I
wanted to
could
get it
feel that
right.
from you.
I
Yeah,
have known
but
I
I
have
think that's the
known them
power.
both for a couple of years since Artisan started. So and I've seen their journey and I've seen how they've grown and it's been amazing. And then when we met Jules, we brought her in and we all went and had into her sales, live it, love it, sell it, which is awesome. And it's just been a great
Yes.
journey, and they've been with me. So
So this is a bit more of your story as well, again,
I
and
suppose it
how
is
everything
actually. Look, I
started for
just
you.
see what I did there.
But this is it. And actually, what's quite funny is going back to what you talked about earlier, is people say, oh, "But I don't have a story. I have nothing to say." I would absolutely love to record maybe a week's worth of conversations that these people have with just friends and family. Because when they say they have no stories and they don't know how to tell a story, I guarantee you that during the week they would have accidentally told about 50 stories without even realizing that they've done it. And because we're humans, that's what we do.
Absolutely. I've talking about Sue and Amy again, and a bit about me. I wrote a book. I wanted to keep saying this last year, but it's not now, is it? It's 2019, and it has all my story in it. And Sue and Amy are in that book, along with other crafters, with their all
Brilliant.
inspirational stories too. So that was a really, really good time. It was a bad time in my life because I had an extra diagnosis in my back. Yeah, I'm storytelling again, and I couldn't walk, so I wrote this book, and then it was we launched it with Kirsty Allstock, and it's just incredible stories within one book. So that's what I'm trying to get to here.
Yeah, no, but again, that's brilliant. I love that. And it also shows the sense of connection that you can have when you tell stories together and when you collaborate with other people, and there's people often have stories that are in some ways completely different from each other, but in other ways, in terms of maybe the feelings that are born from those stories, or maybe the start of the stories or the end of them kind of have a similar situation, are very, very closely connected. And when you can get a few people to tell those stories and there's a theme that links them all together, I think that sometimes makes it even more powerful.
Yeah, Amy's just said the launch was a story in itself. She's got it. She's got it. So I feel like you're interviewing me a little bit nice there.
Sorry, I kind of do that sometimes.
That's fine.
It's my
Two
sales background. I
storytellers. Two
like asking questions.
storytellers.
Yeah.
So I want to know about what you're doing right now and what your plans are for the future. And obviously, I've seen your videos and I've had a little bit of time to have a look what you do, but not fully.
Okay, fair enough. So what I'm doing right now, it's surprise, surprise. My current focus is on something to do with stories.
Really,
Um,
shocker.
yeah, I don't think anybody would have guessed that after this conversation. But it's a hashtag or an event or a program. I don't really know exactly what you would call it, but it's called Storytelling with Puck. For those of you who don't remember, because it was a long time ago, my company name is Puck Creations. So the hashtag goes along with that. And the idea behind it is based on pretty much everything we've just been talking about. So it is to build connection. It is to get I literally want the whole world to get involved in this. I might be being a bit ambitious, but it's to get as many people as possible. You never know. Maybe this is the launch pad for it. But to get as many people as possible to tell a story. It doesn't even have to be their story. It could be an excerpt from something they read as a child, but it can also be their own story, or it can maybe be a story of one of their friends. And those stories, I want them to all come together and be in one place and be related, so that we can all read each other's stories and we can all get to know each other a little bit better through the power of those stories. It can be related to business if you want it to, but it really, really doesn't have to. And so, again, we've had this now this is the third year of it running. And the first 2 years, I believe, were going to have been quite a bit smaller, because it was a very kind of quick launch about a couple of days before we actually started it, just to see how it went. But in those years, we had some absolutely brilliant stories told in lots of different forms. So we had stories that were, as we talked about earlier, stories that were just photos, or stories that were somebody speaking on video. We had stories that were in the form of a kind of a PDF document with words and pictures connected. And they were about all sorts of different subjects. I remember one story from a friend of mine, Nicola, who was just talking about growing up by the seaside and the connection she had to the seaside. Another story from a guy who I'd never met or spoken to or had anything to do with before Storytelling with Puck last year, who spent 5 whole days writing almost a mini chapter of his story of traveling, and a particular period of time that he was traveling from one country to another, and the troubles that he had to go through, and the difficulties. And I remember being absorbed and just going, "Oh God, I want the next chapter. When can I get the next chapter?" And waiting for him to release it into Storytelling with Puck. And talking of our friend, our mutual friend Jules, she wrote a story which was extremely powerful, and she said to me afterwards that she'd never told anyone about it before Storytelling with Puck last year, and it was to do with quite a difficult time in her life, and for Storytelling with Puck, she decided that, you know what, she felt there was enough trust, because she knew that the whole idea of Storytelling with Puck was to properly read or listen, to absorb, and just to say thank you for sharing your story, and that's it. There's no judgment of the story. It's not, you've got a great story, you've got a bad story. That doesn't exist. It's just, there are stories. We're going to read them, and we're going to enjoy them and get the feelings and the emotions from them that they deserve. And so Jules again did a story over a period of 5 days that, I won't lie, made me cry at some points, and also made me laugh, and you know, have a mixture of different feelings. So that's what this is all about. It's that power, and I want all of you to join in.
Really strange. We all will join in. Let me just quickly say about Jules that way back before I started, when I was still off sick as paid nurse, I started watching Dragon's Den, and I saw her then. And I was connected with her through Dragon's Den. I went down to Dragon's Den twice myself through that. And then, before I started Heartizan, when I was doing cuddle beds, I connected with her on Helen. Oh gosh, I've forgotten her last name. But Helen
Pollock, maybe?
No.
Is that it?
No.
I think I know who you mean. Anyway, keep going.
TEDx speaker in Blackpool. So I then connected with her on this challenge that Helen was doing. And we connected, and then I went and had a cup of tea with her and met her, and then decided to do Heartizan and brought her in it. So I've known her for a long, long time now. Even if not properly met back in, Dragon's Den time. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's how it's the stories.
Sorry, say that again.
It's the stories that connected me with her then. Her story on Dragon's Den.
Yeah, exactly. Again, I love what that shows. I love how how, because I think connection and feelings are probably the two kind of most associated words I can think of for stories, and that proves it again. It's that
Emotion.
you almost trust somebody through the stories they tell, because you start to get to know them a little bit better. So you don't have to have ever met them, but you start to get a sense of who they are by reading their stories. And even if they're telling stories about other people or somebody else's story, sometimes the way they tell those stories makes you connect too.
Yeah.
Because you can feel something with them.
Yeah,
You can feel the passion.
brilliant. It's feel good stuff, isn't it? So your event, so is it an actual event or is it, because you said you're not sure whether it's an event or...
Well,
Where can
I
you
am actually going
find
to be
it?
launching it as an event on
It is, right, okay.
on LinkedIn. So, but that's only so that we can get everybody collating everything in the same
Can you
in the
share
same
that
place on
into this
LinkedIn.
group? Is that something you can
Yes,
share into this group? Yeah.
I believe so. I've never actually done an event on LinkedIn before, but I think so. So I would try. But also, it doesn't have to be. You can take part without being part of the actual event on LinkedIn, because it's not a LinkedIn thing. It's a social media in general thing. So you can either post on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. And the way to get the stories seen is that you have to add the hashtag, and this is all one word, storytelling with Puck.
Yeah.
And if you also then tag Puck Creations, so that just to make sure that we see it.
You could share all that details on a separate post in the group another time, or today.
100%.
Whenever.
Yes, I would do that. And
brilliant.
so yeah.
So what we got to do? Tell us all about it, because I find this brilliant.
Okay. So yeah. So the idea is, write your story, take a video of your story, take pictures that you think make an amazing story. You can either explain the pictures if you want, or you can just put them on there and say, I think this tells an amazing story. I'd love to know if you think it tells the same story as I do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And once you've kind of got that inspiration and told and got the idea for the story, put it onto whatever your preferred social media is. For the past 2 years, most people have done it on LinkedIn, but that's because it's where it launched. It's because where we launched it originally. But if you prefer one of the other ones that I mentioned, then put it on there.
I'm on there. I don't use it a lot, I've got to be honest. Crafters don't tend to be there because they're not seen by the people they need to see, if you know what I mean. I'm gonna have to let my dog in.
No worries.
I shut him out, but now he's throwing himself at the door. Hello, baby. Yeah, so it doesn't matter where we put it, you'll still see it, basically.
Yeah, it's really, really important that you put the hashtag in and that you tag Puck Creations, because if you don't do that, there's still a chance that we might see it, but it could just get lost, and then we'll never know that you've put this great story out there, and we then can't collate it. Because what we'll do is, as those stories start coming through, we're then going to collate them and put them onto these social networks, and so we'll put them onto our page on these social networks so that our network can see the stories as well, and so that means hopefully the stories will get a broader reach.
I've just had an idea.
Okay.
I own this group. I also own How to Build Your Craft Business. Zach, would you turn that off, please, my darling? My boy twin, Zach. This is my first ever podcast when we've got dogs barking and water running, but it's all right. It's real life.
It makes it all the more
real life. Yeah. So if I share all this and get my team and put it in my groups, if I put them onto my LinkedIn, would you see it easier?
Yes.
I'll do that then.
Yeah.
I need this to go on there.
Well, it's a good idea, actually. It means, and then what you can do is you can get kind of your network involved in, whoever's on your network involved in, seeing all these different posts and praising whoever it is that's written the story and saying thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I do that. I will
grab those stories and put them onto our page, so that it, like I say, so that it reaches a wider network as well, and that everyone can see, as many people as possible can see.
I think I've got about 5
see the story that I've written.
I think I've got about 5 groups. I think.
Oh, brilliant.
I'm a mums in business leader as well, so I'll put it there. If you give me the stuff, and I always say stuff, it's not, it's the information. And I'll
Stuff's
pop
fine. That works just as well.
it's stuff. Yeah, and I'll put it in all my groups, and then I'll tag you in LinkedIn, and then it's done. Because I think that's awesome. Really good.
Okay, superb. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So, what I will do as part of the stuff is I wrote a blog about it, and it kind of, to be honest, you might get a little bit bored if you're currently listening to this, because it kind of repeats everything I just said. But the most important part of the blog is it tells you how to do it as well. So if you kind of need a bit more of a recap on how to actually get involved, it's on there. But especially with everything you just said in terms of getting it across to those different groups, and then maybe you being able to share it on LinkedIn, that's an extra bonus for me, and that will be really helpful. So yeah, thank you.
So if you share it all in, my group is actually Craft to Be Kind, which is quite surprising, really, seeing as that's my radio show and my podcast.
Why did you choose that name?
I didn't. Now, there's a little story with this. I don't know if you agree with this sort of stuff, but I am a little bit put out into the universe manifest person. Okay. So I've been manifesting my radio show, and it happened in about 10 minutes. And the director or the owner said, right, I think it should be called Craft to Be Kind. And that's what happened.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing. And then from there, you've kind of created a whole extra part of the business around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was supposed to be on someone called Ali Swift. She does the Wellness Toolbox on Solihull Road here. And I was... Right. He was just give me a quick call about her show about my interview, and I'm like, I really want to do this. And the next, honestly, 5 minutes later, I was a presenter because I spoke.
That's incredible.
Like this Zoom storyteller.
I love that. And so I guess from there they realised pretty quickly how how you come across and how you speak to people, and then they thought that's what we need.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And he was like, I don't know where that come from, but I love that name. I'm like, I absolutely love it too. This is what I'm all about. Craft to Be Kind. So
that's superb. And it very much links with, again, going back to what we were talking about much earlier in the conversation, and slightly away from stories, but back to branding, and to defining your brand and who you are. One of the most important things, I think, is when you're doing your branding, so things like your name, your logo, and your copy, etc., and again, how you speak to people and all of that kind of stuff. It's really important that everything aligns to each other and it's all linked. And I think your name, Craft to Be Kind, really links with how everything else comes across. So the way that your whole group, I've only been part of it for a couple of months now, not very long.
It's only been going.
We discovered each other through Jules's group.
It's only been going a few months.
Yeah, not even. And what I'm already seeing from it is how much you give. You're always giving people an opportunity to express themselves, to get themselves out there, to give themselves a chance to be seen by others. And so instantly, I think about this a bit more than other people. So again, like I said earlier, for other people it would be subconscious, but for me it was conscious. I was thinking, there's a really strong link here between the name and what you're actually doing, because it's all about crafting, it's all about getting people's creativity out there. But more importantly, the kind element is that it's very welcoming for everyone who wants to get their business out there. It's not kind of an elbows out, let's push people out of the way and try and get to the top. It's let's everyone's got something really good to offer, and everyone has their audience for it, so let's just make sure that it's seen. And
that means the world to me. That means the world to me, because that's what I want to do, and you've seen it.
There you go. You've done a very good job.
That's awesome. Brilliant. So that's the end of our podcast. Is there anything you'd like to finish off with? Your name. Tell me how you say it again.
I should probably finish by apologising because I speak way too much, and so apologies for any waffle.
No, you don't. No, you don't. And obviously, you're from. Are you from? Did you used to live in Italy, or are you always?
No. So there's a whole other story in itself. I'll make this one quick because I know we're coming towards the end of the podcast. But my sadly both my parents have passed away, but when they were alive, my mum was from Ireland, and she was from the west coast of Ireland, in a little town called Colorglin in Kerry. There's a whole story about the origin of the name Puck Creations, which actually comes from there, for another day. And my dad is from the south of Italy, so he's from a place called San Ferdinando, in Puglia, which is on the heel of Italy. But they both moved to the UK in the 60s, and they met each other in Hammersmith in London, and the rest is history. I'm the youngest of six kids, but they decided.
And I thought I had a lot.
Yeah, you may have had the middle child syndrome. I had the baby child syndrome. So, so yeah, they decided to name all of the kids using Italian names, and so that's where the name comes from. And I try and get over and visit as much as I can, because why wouldn't you? Italy is stunning. I love it.
Yeah, so, I've been there. Is it? So tell me your name again. I'm looking at your messenger so I can try and say it, but you say it.
I would like you to give it another go. I feel like it's time.
Stefano? No, it's close. Because you say it different to me. You say it different to me. Capacchione.
Oh, so close, so close. I feel like that deserves a round of applause because it's that close.
It's not right. Capacchione. Capacchione. Oh.
The only difference is you say chi, and completely understandably, because that's the way that it's read to an English speaker's eyes. But Italian chi in Italian makes a chi sound, so it's Capacchione.
Oh.
And the first name. Pretty much everyone who sees my first name and is from England says Stefano, but the emphasis is slightly in the wrong place. So it's actually Stefano.
I knew you. See, I haven't got that accent to say that.
To be fair, usually when I introduce myself, I don't say Stefano because I think I would sound like an idiot. I take the accent away and I just say Stefano. But with it's the Steph bit rather than the bit, if that makes any sense at all. Or you can.
And you know what?
Or cappuccino.
We wouldn't say that. Do you know what though? We're talking about storytelling, and people's going to listen to this podcast, and at the end, they're never going to get your name now, even they might not get it right.
Yeah, that's the thing. My name is quite memorable, but also forgettable at the same time.
Well, I knew who you were, even we haven't spoke to for a little while, but I know who you were because we connected over in Live It, Love It, Sell It. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, you've been listening to Chrissy Lowry. I am the radio presenter from the Craft to Be Kind show, but because of COVID, I have started a podcast. This is the very first one, or there is a pretend practice one that I loaded last night. So share, like, you can comment, you can share it all over social media, and I'm going to have a bit of a more look at this after my course is finished. So thanks ever so much for being our number one.
Thank you very much, Chrissy. Loved it.